Got to give a big shout out to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello,
Oh, yeah,
fine fellow,
definitely.
for sending this incredible article our way about D&D compatibility.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, and it got me thinking about like all the campaigns I've been in. It's amazing how much this topic like just hits home.
Yeah.
Those campaigns where everything just clicks, everyone's on the same page, the story's flowing, the dice rolls are, well, let's just say they're in your favor.
Yeah, you're in the zone.
Totally.
Yeah.
But then there are those other campaigns, the ones that, well, let's just say they don't go quite as planned.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
I remember this one campaign, I was playing a halfling rogue.
Sneaky.
Oh, the sneakiest. I had this elaborate heist all planned out, right?
Huh?
Hidden tunnels, rigged traps, the whole shebang.
Nice.
Even had a hot air balloon for the escape, don't ask.
Oh, wow.
But our DM, bless their heart, had a different idea. Out of nowhere, bam, earthquake, reshaped the entire city, my meticulously crafted plan, poof, gone, just like that. It was hilarious looking back, but at the time, I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, I bet.
Totally threw me for a loop. That's when I realized compatibility, that shared vision, it's way more important than I thought.
It's the foundation of a good game.
Exactly. And that's what this LitRPG Reads article is all about.
I was going to say, it sounds like this article really gets it.
It's like a roadmap to those amazing campaigns, the ones where everyone's having a blast. And it all starts with understanding the different elements of compatibility.
Right, because there are so many.
Oh, yeah, and the first one they tackle is playstyle analysis.
Which makes sense because like you were saying about your rogue, you got to be on the same page.
Totally. And what's fascinating is that the article doesn't just skim the surface. It breaks it down.
It does.
Oh, yeah. It looks at 4 key aspects of playstyle: roleplay focus, combat interest, story depth, and rule flexibility.
It's like a spectrum.
Right. On one end, you've got those players who live for the roleplay.
Yeah.
Right. The intricate backstories, the nuanced social interactions, all that jazz.
They become the character.
Exactly. And then on the other end, you've got the players who are all about the combat, the min-maxing, the critical hits.
Yeah, the ones who strategize every move.
Exactly. And of course, there's a whole range in between.
Which is what makes it so interesting, right? Because every group is different.
Totally. And the magic happens when you start to understand where each player and the DM falls on those spectrums.
Because if you don't, you might end up with like a DM who loves political intrigue with a bunch of players who just want to like smash things.
Oh, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. But that's the beauty of this article. It gives you the tools to spot those potential clashes before they derail your campaign.
It's like preventative maintenance for your D&D group.
I love that analogy. It's so true. It's like you wouldn't cast a bard in the role of a barbarian, right?
Yeah.
Each player brings their own strengths to the table, and recognizing those differences is key for a balanced party.
Absolutely. And it's not just about balance, it's about making sure everyone is having fun.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting, because then the article starts talking about personality types.
Ooh, personality types. This should be good.
It's like D&D horoscopes, for real. They have these core player DM archetypes, and honestly, it's spot on.
Like what?
Well, they got the strategist, who, you guessed it, is all about planning and tactics. Then there's the actor, who brings their character to life through, the acting. And then you've got the instigator.
Sounds chaotic.
Oh, total chaos. Always stirring the pot.
Yeah.
But my personal favorite, the lore keeper. That's me all the way.
The lore keeper.
Yep, the one who's always peppering the DM with questions about, like, the history of some random artifact or the social customs of some obscure village.
Oh, I know that type.
Oh, yeah. Always digging deep into the lore.
I think what's really insightful about these archetypes is they kind of show us why we play the way we do.
That's deep.
Right. Like the strategist, maybe they love D&D because it lets them use their analytical skills, and the actor, maybe they're looking for a way to explore different parts of themselves, connect with others on an emotional level.
Makes you think, huh?
Yeah. And the coolest thing is these archetypes aren't about labeling people. It's about understanding how different personalities can affect the group.
It's like group dynamics, but for D&D.
Exactly. For example, a group of strategists, they might love a DM who runs really complex combat encounters.
Oh, yeah, they'd eat that up.
Right, but a group of actors, they might prefer a DM who focuses more on role-playing and collaborative storytelling.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where everyone's strengths and preferences align.
Exactly. It's about creating a group that works well together.
Totally. Okay, so we've got play styles, we've got personalities, but here's where things get even trickier, because now we're adding communication styles to the mix.
Ooh, yeah, that's a whole other layer.
You've got all these different people with their own preferences and expectations trying to tell a story together.
And they all communicate differently.
It can make or break the whole campaign.
Oh, for sure. Miscommunication can lead to all sorts of problems.
Oh, tell me about it. I remember this one campaign. We had this player who was super quiet in real life.
Oh, really?
But in the game, they transformed into this boisterous, larger-than-life barbarian, always yelling and charging into battle.
That's awesome.
It was amazing to watch.
Yeah.
But it sometimes clashed with our DM style, who was more, reserved and thoughtful.
Oh, I see.
There were times when the DM was trying to set a serious mood, and this barbarian would just burst in, swinging their axe and cracking jokes.
A bit of a mood whiplash.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it created some tension, not because anyone was being mean or anything, but just because their communication styles were so different.
It's about understanding those differences, and that's where the article's communication matrix is so helpful.
It is, right. It breaks down all these different aspects of communication, like how people give and receive feedback, how they handle conflict, how comfortable they are with contributing to the story.
It's like a cheat sheet for understanding your fellow players.
I love that. It really is.
Yeah.
Some players might be super direct with their feedback, Hey, DM, that encounter was way too easy.
Straight to the point.
Yep. While others might be more subtle, expressing their feelings through their characters' actions or in-game dialogue.
So it's about figuring out how everyone communicates best.
Exactly. And then there's conflict resolution. Some groups are very player-led. They work things out amongst themselves. But others, they might prefer the DM to take charge.
Yeah, to be the final arbiter.
It's about finding that balance, that common ground where everyone feels heard and respected.
And that leads us to another crucial point the article makes, setting expectations.
It's all about getting everyone on the same page before you even roll those dice.
Before you even start, yeah.
I've been in campaigns that felt like epic sagas, spanning continents, ancient prophecies, the whole 9 yards. And I've been in campaigns that were more like sitcoms, full of wacky hijinks and lighthearted adventures.
Both can be fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But only if everyone's aligned on the tone and scope of the game.
Right. It's like setting the stage for the story you want to tell together.
That's a great way to put it. It's like building a house. You need that solid foundation.
Exactly. And the article breaks down the key elements you need to align on before you start.
Like what?
Well, first off, the theme. Is it high fantasy, gritty realism, something completely off the wall?
So important.
Right. And then there's the scope. Are we talking a local tavern brawl or a one-old ending threat?
The stakes.
Exactly. And then you've got all the details. Character development, role expectations, gameplay complexity, individual versus group goals.
Ooh, that's a lot to consider.
It is, but by having these conversations up front, you're creating a shared vision for the game. You're making sure everyone's invested in the same story and that their play styles mesh with the overall direction.
It's like planning a road trip.
Right. You wouldn't just hop in the car and start driving without knowing where you're going.
Exactly. You got to agree on the destination first.
And the same goes for D&D. By setting those expectations, you're paving the way for a smoother, more enjoyable journey for everyone.
So true. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. Playstyle analysis, personality types, communication styles, and setting expectations.
And we're just getting started.
I know, right? This article's jam-packed with insights. But before we dive into the next layer, we want to hear from you, our awesome listeners.
Yeah, what do you think?
What are your thoughts on these initial elements of D&D compatibility? Have you had any epic wins or epic fails because of, mismatched playstyles or communication breakdowns?
I'd love to hear your stories.
Share them in the comments below. And stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll explore even more fascinating facets of D&D compatibility, all thanks to the brilliant mind of Paul Bullough, fine fellow.
He really knows his stuff.
He does.
Okay, so we've talked about the foundation of D&D compatibility, right?
Yeah, getting everyone on the same page.
Yep. But this article goes even deeper. It dives into the nitty-gritty of gameplay, and one thing that really stood out to me was this idea of flexibility zone.
Flexibility zone.
Yeah, imagine this. You've spent hours crafting the perfect dungeon.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. Intricate traps, challenging puzzles, a big bad dragon guarding a mountain of treasure.
Classic.
But then your players do something totally unexpected.
Oh, no.
Like they befriend a group of kobolds.
The kobolds.
Yeah. And they convince them to join their cause, use their knowledge of the dungeon to bypass all your carefully laid plans.
Talk about a curveball.
Right. As a DM, you have this vision, but then the players throw a wrench in the works and you have to decide, do you stick to the script or do you embrace the chaos?
It's like improv DMing.
Exactly. And that's what flexibility zones are all about. It's about recognizing that D&D is a collaborative storytelling experience, and sometimes the best stories are the ones we don't plan for.
It's about being open to the unexpected.
Yes. Embracing the chaos, finding the joy in the unpredictable.
I love that. It's like instead of seeing player deviations as failures, you see them as opportunities.
Exactly. The article even suggests building flexibility points into your campaigns.
Flexibility points.
Yeah, moments where player actions can actually change the story. It's about giving players agency, letting them make meaningful choices, and trusting that even if things go off the rails, you can still create a great narrative together.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. It's like you're not just playing the game, you're co-creating it.
That's it. It's a partnership between the DM and the players.
But even with the most flexible DM, you're still dealing with, people. And people have their own, quirks.
Social dynamics.
Exactly.
And that's where the article's discussion of, you guessed it, social dynamics comes in.
So it's not just about what happens in the game, it's about the real-world relationships, too.
Exactly. You're spending hours together, sharing stories, laughing, getting frustrated, celebrating victories.
You're building bonds.
Right. Building trust, navigating all the complexities of being in a group. The article even suggests DMs think about things like group size, time commitment, out-of-game connections, even table etiquette.
Table etiquette.
Oh, yeah. Some groups are super chill. Others are more, shall we say, structured.
Yeah, I've definitely been in both.
It's about finding a group that vibes with your style.
Speaking of vibes, what happens when those vibes clash? Because, let's be real, conflict is going to happen.
It's inevitable when you have different personalities, play styles, expectations all coming together.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, that's where the problem resolution section comes in. And the key takeaway here is that conflict isn't always a bad thing.
Like, really?
Yeah. When it's handled well, conflict can actually make the group stronger.
It's like growing pains?
Kind of. It's about approaching disagreements with open communication, a willingness to compromise, and a shared goal of finding solutions that work for everyone.
So it's not about avoiding conflict, it's about managing it.
Exactly. Like, let's say a player feels like their character isn't getting enough attention in the story.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Instead of letting it fester, they could bring it up to the group, maybe suggest ways to incorporate their character more.
So communication is key.
Absolutely. Or maybe there's a disagreement about a rule. Instead of arguing, you look it up together, discuss different interpretations, and find a solution everyone's happy with.
It's about working together.
Exactly. But even with the best communication and problem-solving skills, you're going to run into some snags if you have a group with drastically different levels of experience.
Oh, yeah. That can be tough. I remember my first campaign. I was so lost.
We all been there.
I spent hours staring at my character sheet like, what is this?
It's a lot to take in.
It is. Thankfully, our DM was super patient, walked me through everything. But not all DMs are like that, and not all newbies are so lucky.
That's a great point, and it brings us to the article section on experience balance.
So how do you create a campaign that works for both experienced players and newbies?
Well, the article suggests some cool strategies like personalized growth plans for each player.
Personalized growth plan.
Yeah, like for a newbie, you might gradually introduce more complex rules as they level up.
So they don't get overwhelmed.
Right. And for a veteran player, maybe you give them opportunities to mentor new players or contribute to the world building.
That's awesome. So everyone feels challenged and engaged.
Exactly. It's about creating a learning environment where everyone can grow.
So it's not just about playing the game, it's about leveling up as a group.
I like that, leveling up as a group. But let's face it, even with the best intentions, there's one logistical hurdle that can trip up any D&D group.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. Scheduling.
You got it. Life gets in the way. Schedules clash. It can be a real pain.
It's the quest for the elusive free weekend.
Right. And the article stresses how important it is to have an honest conversation about time commitments before you start.
Before you even create characters.
Exactly. It even has this schedule matrix to help groups figure out their preferences.
Like how long are sessions, how often do you meet, all that stuff.
Yep. It's about setting realistic expectations from the get-go.
Okay, so we've talked about flexibility, social dynamics, conflict resolution, experience balance, even scheduling.
It's a lot.
It is. This article is like a D&D compatibility vibe.
It's pretty comprehensive.
But before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, we want to hear from you, our amazing listeners.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on all this?
Have you had any epic wins or epic fails because of, like, mismatched expectations or communication breakdowns?
Share your stories in the comments below.
And stay tuned for part 3 of this deep dive, where we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts, all thanks to the wisdom of Paul Bello, fine fellow.
It's amazing, isn't it?
What is?
Just how much there is to D&D compatibility.
Oh, yeah. Way more than I ever realized.
It's not just about finding people who like fantasy. It's about all these different pieces coming together.
Like a puzzle.
Yeah. Personalities, play styles, expectations, all those things have to fit.
To create something truly magical.
Exactly. And you know, this whole deep dive has really opened my eyes.
Me too. It's like all these things I knew instinctively, but now I can actually articulate them.
Right. It's like the article gave us a language to talk about compatibility.
I like that. A language for D&D harmony.
And one of the biggest takeaways for me, it's got to be communication.
Yeah, communication is key in any relationship, really.
Absolutely. But especially in D&D, because you've got this group of people all with their own ideas.
And their own ways of expressing those ideas.
Exactly. So misunderstandings happen, conflicts pop up, it's inevitable.
So what's the solution?
Well, the article makes this point that these challenges, they're not necessarily bad things.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they can actually be opportunities.
For what?
For growth, for understanding. It's about creating a space where everyone feels safe to speak their mind.
So it's about fostering that open communication.
Exactly, where people can express their needs, voice their concerns, and work together to find solutions.
It makes you think about how you approach conflict, you know?
Oh, for sure. Like, I remember this one campaign.
Why haven't?
We had this player who was super into the strategic combat side of D&D.
Oh, they're tactician?
Yeah. Loved planning out every move, optimizing their character build, turning every fight into a chess match.
Sounds intense.
It was. But it kind of clashed with the rest of the group who were more into role-playing and story.
Different strokes for different folks.
Right. And at first there's some friction.
I bet.
But then we had this really honest conversation
about
what everyone wanted from the game.
That's so important.
It is. The tactician explained they loved the challenge of combat, the role players shared their desire for more story, and somehow we found a compromise.
How?
Well, the DM started incorporating more tactical combat encounters, but also made sure there was plenty of room for role-playing and character development.
So everyone got what they wanted.
Pretty much. It was amazing how just talking it out made such a difference.
See? Communication saves the day.
Every time. And it's not just about resolving conflicts, it's about recognizing that everyone brings something unique to the table.
And those differences can actually make the game richer.
Exactly. So if we had to give our listeners one piece of advice before starting a new campaign, it would be this.
Drum roll, please.
Talk to each other.
Simple but powerful.
Right. Have those open and honest conversations before you even roll the dice. Figure out what kind of experience you're all looking for, what your individual play styles are, what your expectations are for the story.
Don't be afraid to get into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. Talk about how you handle disagreements, how much input you want on the story, what your comfort levels are with different themes.
The more you talk, the better prepared you'll be.
And the more fun you'll have.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So on that note, a huge thank you to Paul Bello.
Fine fellow.
The finest. And to LitRPG Reads for this incredible article.
It's been an eye-opener.
It really has. And we hope it's inspired you, our amazing listeners, to take a closer look at your own D&D groups and think about how you can create those magical, harmonious gaming experiences.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Until next time. May your dice rolls be ever in your favor, and may your campaigns be filled with laughter, adventure, and the joy of shared storytelling.
And lots of critical hits.
Always.